In this video, we'll discuss the important concepts of type 1 and type 2 error. So if you're doing hypothesis tests, there are two types of mistakes you can make. You can make a type 1 error, which is rejecting the null hypothesis given the null hypothesis is true. We let alpha be the probability of making a type 1 error. Alpha is often called the level of significance of the test. Or we can make a type 2 error. We could accept the null hypothesis given it's not true. We define beta to be the probability of making a type 2 error. So a situation that's helpful for understanding type 1 and type 2 errors has to do with the U.S. criminal justice system. So in the U.S. criminal justice system, the defendant is innocent until proven guilty. So basically the null hypothesis is the defendant is innocent, because it's always going to take a lot of proof to disprove the null hypothesis, as you'll see throughout this module. The alternative hypothesis is the defendant is guilty. So a type 1 error corresponds to rejecting the null hypothesis and basically accepting the alternative. That's convicting an innocent defendant. Okay? A type 2 error corresponds to letting a guilty person go free. Now in the U.S. system, a 12-0 vote is needed for conviction. So the U.S. judicial system considers a type 1 error to be costlier than a type 2 error, and the null hypothesis is indeed the defendant is innocent because it takes overwhelming proof to disprove that hypothesis. So for another example, let's return to our pancreatic cancer drug example. Okay, so you recall the null hypothesis there was that the probability that somebody taking the new drug with pancreatic cancer would survive was less than or equal to 0.1, no better than the old drug. The alternative was their chance of survival was greater than 0.1. What are the type 1 and type 2 errors in that situation? Well, a type 1 error would result when we reject the hypothesis that the chance of survival for 5 years is less than or equal to 0.1 when it was really basically less than 0.1. Okay, so that corresponds to concluding the drug is an improvement, because when you reject p less than or equal to 0.1, you're saying basically p is greater than 0.1, the drug is an improvement, when in reality it wasn't. Okay, so that's the type 1 error there. Now a type 2 error results when we accept p less than or equal to 0.1, which is essentially saying the drug is not an improvement when it actually was an improvement. So basically here the type 2 error corresponds to concluding the drug is not an improvement when the drug is actually an improvement. Now in the next video, we'll return to the definition of null and alternative hypotheses and basically give you lots of examples that hopefully will make it easier for you to understand how statisticians set up null and alternative hypotheses.